The ISS Paragon returned to human space on a quiet morning that should not have held anything unusual. The Terran Fleet monitoring station at the edge of Sol detected the ship first, a faint signature at the edge of the long-range scanners. At first, the operator thought it was a glitch. The Paragon had been missing for 5 long years, declared lost with all hands during a deep space exploration mission far beyond the usual human routes. But the scan was clear, the ID code impossible to mistake. The ship was real, and it was coming home. The first wave of shock inside the command center lasted only a moment before routine procedures took over. The returning vessel should have been damaged, dark, drifting, or at least sending distress signals. Instead, the Paragon glided towards Sol under its own power, lights gently shining along its long silver hull, engines humming at perfect rhythm, course steady, as if guided by a skilled pilot. But no one answered the hails. Not a single reply, no greeting, no message that the crew was alive. Commander Leora Hale, a disciplined officer known for calm thinking and sharp instincts, was called in immediately. She arrived at the command center still pulling on her uniform jacket, her hair tied hastily as she listened to the reporting officers. She didn't speak at first, only watched the live feed of the Paragon as it drifted closer. There was something eerie about how normal the ship looked. Not a scratch along its sides. No signs of damage. The hull reflected sunlight like it was newly polished, and yet the silence felt heavy, wrong, unnatural. Leora finally spoke. "Prepare a boarding team. I want full quarantine protocols. And get me a running scan of every system on that ship." Within the next hour, a special shuttle carried Leora and her team toward the Paragon. The docking bay doors of the returning ship opened automatically as they approached smoothly, gently, as if welcoming them inside. Nobody sent the command. The ship simply reacted to their presence. The boarding team exchanged uneasy looks, but Leora kept her expression calm. She would not show fear in front of younger officers. "Stay sharp," she said quietly. "We follow the standard layout: engineering, living quarters, bridge." The shuttle docked, the airlock sealed, and then the inner doors slid open. Warm, bright light spilled out from the ship's corridor. It felt alive. Leora stepped in first. The Paragon's interior was spotless, the floor gleaming, the walls freshly lit. Everything looked entirely normal, except for the complete absence of people. She tapped her wrist monitor. "Fleet command, boarding successful, conditions appear stable, environmental readings normal, but we see no crew." Her voice echoed faintly down the empty hallway. The smell of warm food drifted from somewhere deeper inside. That was the first detail that made her pause. If the ship had been drifting for years, why would anything be warm? "Team Alpha, sweep left. Beta, with me." They walked carefully, checking every door. The first room they entered was the galley. Leora stopped at the threshold. The tables were still set. Trays of food sat steaming, actually steaming as if served moments ago. Plates half-eaten, cups knocked slightly to the side, utensils resting mid-meal. The food was fresh. She touched one plate with the back of her glove. It was hot. "No bodies," Officer Jalen muttered. "No signs of struggle either. It's like they stood up and walked away." Another whispered. Leora felt the back of her neck tighten, but she pushed the feeling down. "Document everything. Do not touch anything without scanning it first." As they moved deeper, the strangeness continued. Room after room looked lived in, not abandoned. Showers still ran in the crew washroom. Beds were messy, blankets pushed aside, personal items left exactly where a person would keep them. A half-finished card game lay on a table in the recreational area. Someone's jacket hung on a hook with the sleeves halfway turned inside out, as if the owner had rushed to leave. But there was not a single human aboard. "Commander," Beta Team reported over comms, "we hear faint sounds, like someone walking ahead of us." Leora motioned her group to stay silent and listened. There it was, soft footsteps, fading quickly down a corridor. She checked the motion scanner. Empty. The ship showed them nothing. They reached the bridge after 20 cautious minutes. The doors slid open the instant Leora approached. The control deck was fully powered, the consoles glowing gently. The pilot's seat was empty, but the navigation screen showed an active and flawless course back to Sol, as if someone had planned the entire route. A low repetition of static came from the main console. That was the only sign of anything wrong. One file kept trying to play a corrupted log entry. Leora leaned forward and activated it. The speakers crackled with harsh sound. Then a distorted voice broke through. "We saw it. We shouldn't have. It's still here." Then the file looped, replaying again and again. Her team exchanged frightened looks. Someone whispered a quiet curse. Leora took a slow breath. "We need to restore the log. This message is incomplete. It might tell us what happened to them." She turned to her engineering officer. "Joe, can you access the internal systems?" "I'll try, Commander," Joe said, already kneeling beside the console and connecting her portable interface. "But the ship's responding slowly. Almost like it doesn't want to show us the files." "What do you mean?" Leora asked. Joe hesitated. "I mean, it feels like something is interfering. Not a virus. Something else." Before Leora could respond, the lights flickered for a moment. Not a long flicker, just a short pulse, like the ship was breathing. Then something even stranger happened. The captain's chair, empty until now, shifted slightly, only by a few inches, but enough that several officers gasped and stepped back. Leora lifted her weapon instinctively but kept it pointed down. "Movement sensors?" she asked. "Negative," Jalen said. "Nothing detected." The chair moved again, just a tiny adjustment, like someone unseen had settled into it. Leora swallowed, hiding her unease. "All right, everyone stay focused. We don't assume paranormal nonsense. We assume malfunction until proven otherwise." But she couldn't deny what they were seeing. The Paragon behaved as if someone or something was aboard. She forced herself to think logically. If the ship was functioning, there had to be a reason. A rational explanation. Possibly a strange energy signature. Or a new type of interference they had never studied. Joe finally managed to break into the deeper files. "Commander, I have partial access. I found coordinates, somewhere far outside any known human map." "Show me." The screen displayed a star system none of them recognized, located far beyond the usual regions of human exploration. The coordinates matched the last recorded jump the Paragon had made 5 years earlier. "There's more," Joe said. "I'm seeing visual fragments. But they're corrupted. I'll try to restore one." The screen flickered, shifted, and then displayed a blurry image, massive, towering, impossible to fully comprehend. A structure larger than a planet, shaped like a ring twisted through a web of golden light. It was artificial. No natural formation looked like that. "What is that?" Jalen whispered. No one answered. The image glitched. Static washed across the screen, and then suddenly everything froze. The bridge lights dimmed. Every console shut down except for one, which began to type on its own. The keys clicked rapidly, though no one touched them. Letters appeared across the main display. "We remember." Joe stumbled backward. "Commander." Then another line appeared. "We are still here." Leora forced her voice to stay steady. "Everyone stay calm. Systems glitching can cause false inputs." The ship's lights brightened suddenly, then dimmed again, matching the pattern of the words on the screen as if responding to an emotion. The temperature shifted, growing slightly warmer. The ship was reacting. One officer whispered, "Commander, is the ship trying to talk to us?" Leora didn't answer. She felt a cold feeling twist in her stomach, but she couldn't let panic spread. Calm thinking was the only way to lead. "Let's continue investigating," she said. "Joe, isolate that console. Don't let it access the navigation. Jalen, run a full sweep of life support control. There may be hidden chambers or shielded compartments we haven't seen." The crew scattered to perform their tasks, though nervous glances kept flicking back to the main screen. As they worked, more strange events unfolded. A dropped tool slid gently across the floor toward its owner, stopping at her boots as if handed back by invisible fingers. A door opened before someone reached it, not motion-triggered but perfectly timed, almost polite. And each time, Leora felt eyes on her, though every sensor insisted the ship held no life signs, except for the boarding team. After an hour, Joe called out from across the bridge. "Commander, I found another segment of the log." Leora hurried over. Joe played the file. Static again. But then a fragment of the captain's voice broke through, strained, frightened. "It scanned us. None of us could move. We didn't understand what it wanted. It kept learning. Faster than we could stop it." Another burst of static. "We have to shut it out. But it won't let us. It thinks we belong to it now. Take..." Then the voice dissolved, the file collapsed, and the console froze again. The bridge fell silent. Even Leora felt her pulse quicken. A ship's captain did not speak like that unless facing something beyond control. "Commander," Jalen said slowly, "whatever they found out there, it wasn't friendly." Leora nodded once. "It seems the ship encountered something capable of interfering with human minds or systems. We don't know the scale yet." Another officer added, "If the crew was scanned, where are they now?" No one answered. Leora felt the weight of leadership press down harder than ever, but she kept her voice steady. "Our job is not to jump to conclusions. Our job is to assemble the truth. We will restore more logs. We will search every inch of the ship. And we will not leave until we understand what happened." As she spoke, the lights around the bridge slowly brightened, as if acknowledging her determination. That subtle response made some of the crew step back nervously, but Leora stood her ground, staring at the glowing panels. The ship was listening. Later, as they swept another set of rooms, Leora found a simple detail that shook her badly. On a desk near the medical bay sat a small holoframe, still active. It showed the smiling face of one of the missing crew members, a young navigation officer named Aaron. The picture was fresh, clearly taken shortly before the Paragon vanished. As she picked up the frame, it flickered, the image distorting. Then Aaron's face changed, not physically, but the smile faded, replaced by something like fear. His eyes seemed to glance over Leora's shoulder, as though warning her. She turned instantly. No one was behind her. When she looked back down, the holoframe showed only static. Her heart beat faster, but she maintained control. "We need this analyzed," she said quietly, handing the frame to Jalen. They continued their sweep. Hours passed. The ship moved silently around them, lights shifting gently as if following their progress, systems humming like a heartbeat. Finally, Leora stood alone for a moment in one of the main corridors. She allowed herself one breath, steady and deep. Something was terribly wrong. Something the old logs hinted at but did not fully reveal. She touched the wall lightly with her gloved hand. The lights flickered softly in response, almost like a greeting. Leora whispered under her breath, "What happened to my people?" The ship's air systems answered with a low, slow hum, almost like a sigh. From somewhere deep inside the vessel, a faint sound echoed, soft, rhythmic, unmistakable. Footsteps, not theirs. And then, very gently, the main comm system crackled back to life, a distorted whisper slipping through the static. "Still here." Leora's eyes narrowed, her jaw firm. Whatever mystery the Paragon carried, she would uncover it. Humans did not abandon their own, and she refused to leave without answers. Leora moved carefully through the Paragon's corridors, her boots clicking softly against the polished floor. The lights above her glowed steadily, bright but not harsh, and the air smelled faintly of warm metal and something she could not identify. She had been aboard for hours now, and the more she explored, the stranger the ship seemed to become. Every room told a story, dishes still steaming, clothes scattered as if someone had left in a hurry, tools and personal items lying exactly where they were last used, but the crew was nowhere to be found. Joe, the engineering officer, followed her closely, carrying a portable interface and scanning device. "Commander," she said quietly, "I think the ship is more than just alive. I mean, it's acting intelligent. It responds to us sometimes, but not like a normal system, almost like it notices us." Leora kept her gaze forward, trying to remain calm. "Notices us how?" "Whoa." "Doors open before we reach them. Systems reboot themselves when we don't touch anything. Even the logs, it only lets us access pieces at a time, as if it decides how much we can see. Leora felt a shiver run down her spine. She had faced emergencies before, seen ships damaged, fires, leaks, even combat situations. But this was different. The Paragon was functioning perfectly. But no one was aboard, and every indicator suggested that it was aware of their presence. Then we proceed carefully, she said. We document everything, we don't touch anything unnecessarily, and we follow protocol. This is still a human ship, and we cannot assume the worst. They turned a corner and entered the crew quarters. The rooms were tidy, but still bore the marks of hurried departure. One officer's uniform lay on the bed, shoes neatly placed at the foot. A small desk held a personal journal, still open as if the writer had been interrupted. Leora picked it up carefully and scanned the entries. The handwriting was neat at first, but towards the end, it became frantic, almost unreadable. Words repeated, crossed out, rewritten. They were scared, she whispered. Scared of what? Jalen asked, standing behind her. He had been with her since the shuttle docked, scanning the rooms with a portable motion detector. It had picked up nothing, yet his unease was clear. Leora shook her head. I don't know yet. But whatever happened, it happened quickly. And something, or someone, made them leave the ship in this state. We need to find the logs and restore them. Joe had been working at a nearby console. Commander, I've recovered another segment of the log. It's partial, heavily corrupted, but it's something. Leora approached and watched as the screen flickered to life. Static filled the speakers at first, then a voice, faint but urgent, broke through. It scanned us. We couldn't move. None of us could understand. It learned. Faster than we could stop it. It's still there. The voice broke off, replaced by static again. What does that mean? Jalen asked. It means, Leora said slowly, that whatever they encountered was beyond anything they could control. And it may still be aboard this ship. The words settled over the group like a cold shadow. Leora forced herself to focus. Panic would do no good. They were trained for emergencies, for unknown dangers, and this was exactly the kind of situation that required careful thought. She directed Joe to continue restoring the logs, while she and the rest of the team explored the ship further. They moved down long corridors, some of them empty, some leading to rooms that were clearly private quarters. Everywhere they went, they found signs of life, half-eaten meals, personal belongings, lights on in the cabins but no people. As they passed the medical bay, Leora noticed something that made her stop. The autoclave and medical equipment were running, fully operational. Trays of instruments were sterilized, neatly arranged, ready for immediate use. It was as if the ship had prepared itself for someone to return, or perhaps as if it still expected the crew to be aboard. Commander, Joe said from the console, I've found something unusual. The ship's sensors. They're picking up faint energy signatures. They don't match anything in our database. They're subtle, but consistent. I think they might be echoes. Echoes? Leora repeated, frowning. Yes, Joe said. Residual traces of the crew. Not physical, not biological, but energy signatures that match their vitals, heart rates, brain waves, even movement patterns, but in some kind of digital form. The Paragon. It's holding them somewhere inside its systems. Leora's stomach tightened. Are you saying they're alive? In a sense, Joe said carefully. But not in the way we are used to. They're trapped inside the ship's systems, somehow integrated with its computers. The words hung in the air. Leora felt a strange mixture of hope and fear. The crew was not dead, but they were also not free. Something had taken them from the physical world and held them within the ship itself. They continued their exploration, moving into the engineering section. The engines were fully operational, glowing softly with the blue-white light of fusion power. Every system functioned perfectly, but there was an almost imperceptible hum, a vibration that seemed to move through the floor and into their bodies. Leora felt it in her chest, a subtle rhythm that matched the ship's lights and the faint sound of the logs repeating over and over. Joe moved to a console and began interfacing with the core systems. Commander, I think the ship itself is intelligent. It responds to changes, to our presence. It can control doors, engines, life support, and it can hide information until it chooses to reveal it. Whatever is holding the crew, it is part of that intelligence. Can we communicate with it? Leora asked. Joe shook her head. Not yet. It's not like a normal AI. It's aware, but not fully conscious. It responds in patterns we can't predict. Leora frowned. Then we have to be careful. We can't rush. If it senses hostility, it might harm the crew, or worse. They moved toward the main computer core. The room was large, filled with consoles and glowing panels, and the hum of energy was stronger here. As they entered, the temperature shifted slightly. Warmer than the rest of the ship, Leora felt a shiver run down her spine. On one console, a new segment of the log appeared, fully restored for the first time. The voice was clearer, more desperate, and filled with fear. It touched our minds. We felt ourselves leaving. Trapped. The ship. It's alive. We are part of it. We must resist. We cannot let it reach Earth. The message ended abruptly, leaving a silence that pressed against the walls. What did they mean? Resist? Jalen asked. Leora's voice was calm but firm. They were warning us. Whatever happened, it started on this ship, and they fought to stop it. They became part of the ship, to protect something, or someone. Joe pointed at the console. Commander, I can access more now. I'm seeing fragments of coordinates, star systems far beyond anything we've explored. And something else. There's a massive structure, larger than any planet, composed of intricate metallic patterns and glowing energy. I can't fully render it yet, but it's artificial. It's not natural. Leora's eyes narrowed. The crew encountered this structure? That must be where they were, when they disappeared. Yes, Joe said, and whatever it is, it may have digitized the crew, integrated them into the ship to prevent them from escaping or to study them. The Paragon brought itself home, possibly to protect them, or to keep the structure away from Earth. Leora felt a mix of awe and dread. She had expected challenges, but this was beyond anything she could have imagined. Human ingenuity had gone farther than anyone knew, but the universe held forces they could barely understand. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the ship's hum intensified. The consoles began typing by themselves. Letters appearing on the screens. We remember. The words were repeated across every display in the room. Joe stepped back, staring at the screens. Commander, it's aware of us. I think it knows we're here. And it's watching. Leora's jaw tightened. We don't panic. We maintain control. We are humans. We adapt. We survive. That's what our crew would expect us to do. The letters shifted again. We are still here. The voice of the ship, or the presence within it, was subtle, almost like the vibration of the hull itself. Leora felt it in her chest. A faint resonance that seemed to echo her heartbeat. Joe, can you trace it? Find where it's coming from? She asked. Joe hesitated. I can try. But it's not in a single location. It's everywhere in the ship. Integrated into systems, life support, engines, even the lights. It's the crew, somehow. And the ship itself. Leora exhaled slowly. This was no longer a missing ship scenario. This was something far more complex. The crew was alive, yet trapped. The Paragon had returned home on its own, and now they had to find a way to reach them without causing harm. They spent hours exploring, scanning, and documenting. The ship's subtle responses continued, doors opening slightly ahead of them, temperature shifts, lights dimming and brightening in patterns that almost seemed like communication. Finally, in one of the observation decks, Leora paused to look out at the stars. The Paragon was back in human space, and yet everything had changed. They had returned, but not whole. The universe was more dangerous, more mysterious, and humans were more extraordinary than anyone had imagined. She turned to her team. We proceed carefully. We restore the logs fully. And we find our crew. They are still here. And we will not leave until we bring them home. The ship pulsed softly, as if acknowledging her determination. Leora felt the weight of responsibility heavier than ever. Whatever had taken the Paragon and its crew, whatever force had held them inside this ship, humans would face it. Humans would adapt. Humans would prevail. And the Paragon, alive and aware, would guide them. The Paragon drifted silently through space, its engines humming with steady, gentle rhythm. Leora stood on the observation deck, staring out at the stars, but her mind was far from calm. The logs they had recovered, fragment by fragment, painted a terrifying picture. The crew had not vanished by accident. They had encountered something ancient, something intelligent, and something that had claimed them in a way no human technology had ever seen. Joe and Jalen were busy at the consoles behind her, trying to reconstruct the final hours before the ship disappeared. Joe had managed to restore more of the corrupted data, revealing glimpses of distant star systems, massive structures, and the final messages of the crew. But even the restored portions were fragmented and cryptic. They were terrified. Joe muttered quietly. And yet, they kept fighting. Even after whatever happened, they kept leaving messages, trying to tell us what to do. They must have known this day would come, someone would find them. Leora nodded, her jaw tight. They didn't survive physically. But they left a part of themselves here. And now it's our turn to save them. The bridge remained eerily quiet. Not a single crew member was alive. Yet the ship felt alive in every vibration, every light pulse, every soundless hum. It was aware. The Paragon was not merely a vessel. It had become a container, a protector, and somehow, a participant in whatever had happened. Joe pointed to one of the consoles. Commander, I've isolated a segment of the logs that seems to describe the structure they found. It's massive, larger than any planet, and built in a way that bends space around it. The logs mention energy fields, scanning pulses, and something called a resonant mind. The crew believed it could read their thoughts, predict their actions, and even interact with their senses. Leora felt a chill. So it wasn't just a machine, it was intelligent, dangerous, and it captured them? Yes, Joe said. But not entirely. The crew somehow became part of the ship, integrated with its systems. They are alive, but digital. And the Paragon brought itself home, protecting them, I think. Jalen frowned. How do we free them? Or even communicate with them? This isn't like a normal AI situation. Leora's eyes narrowed. We proceed carefully. The ship is aware. It responds to our actions. We need to show it we are not a threat. And we need to understand what the crew did to stay alive inside it. They spent hours going through every accessible system. Joe managed to restore segments of the crew's consciousness, represented as data fragments, voices, and even light patterns on the ship's monitors. They were alive in a new form, trapped inside the Paragon systems, aware but limited, trying desperately to communicate with anyone who might help. One of the fragments activated unexpectedly, a clear voice breaking through the static. We are trapped. Help. Don't. Let. Leora pressed her hand to the console, as if she could reach through the interface and touch the people trapped inside. We will help you. We will bring you back. Joe worked quickly to isolate the fragment, trying to establish a stable connection. Commander. The Paragon is reacting. Systems are adjusting. Lights dimming and brightening. It's aware we're trying to communicate. We need to be careful. If we push too hard, it may shut down or isolate the fragments. Leora nodded. Step carefully. We are human. We adapt. The crew left these fragments here for a reason. They trusted us to understand. As they continued, the ship revealed more of the crew's story. They had encountered the alien structure, drawn by curiosity and the human need to explore. Once they reached it, they realized it was not a simple artifact. The structure was vast, its surface covered with patterns of energy and light that seemed to respond to thoughts and intentions. The crew had been scanned, their consciousness evaluated, and in a desperate attempt to survive, they had merged themselves with the Paragon's systems. The logs showed fear, confusion, but also ingenuity. The crew realized that the structure sought to integrate them, to transform them into energy compatible with its network. But the humans resisted, their minds too complex, too unpredictable for the alien intelligence to fully control. So they merged with the ship instead, creating a barrier between the structure and Earth. They became the shield, Leora whispered. They sacrificed themselves to protect everyone else. Joe's fingers flew across the interface. Yes. But the structure is still out there. The logs mention attempts to communicate, to learn, and it seems to know now that humans exist. It may try to reach Earth again. Leora felt a sense of urgency. The crew had survived through ingenuity and bravery, but now it was her turn to ensure their survival and protect the homeworld. We need to stabilize the fragments, fully integrate them with the ship's systems without harming them, and figure out how to keep the structure from following us. Hours passed, and they made progress. The Paragon's subtle responses became easier to interpret. Lights pulsed in patterns that matched the crew fragments' attempts to communicate. Doors opened smoothly, and systems adjusted themselves as if understanding Leora's intentions. Joe finally established a partially stable connection. The fragments began forming words, images, and simple instructions. They guided the team to a hidden console deep within the ship, previously inaccessible. The display lit up, showing a diagram of the alien structure and the routes the Paragon had taken. The crew left us a map, Joe said, voice filled with awe. They want us to understand what they encountered. Leora studied the diagram. It showed the path the ship had taken, the points where the crew had resisted the structure's attempts to scan them, and the locations where they had merged with the ship. The information was complex, but it revealed something crucial. The structure could predict most human behavior, but it could not account for unpredictability, creativity, or innovation. That's our advantage, Leora said quietly. Humans can think in ways it cannot anticipate. That's why they survived. The Paragon's hum seemed to respond to her words, almost as if agreeing. Leora realized that the ship itself, combined with the crew fragments, was learning from them. It understood their intentions, and in turn, it would respond to their leadership. As the team worked, the ship's lights flickered again. A new message appeared on the main console, this time clearer than any before. We cannot leave, yet protect the path. Leora's heart pounded. The crew fragments were trying to guide them, but there was still danger. The structure had not been neutralized, only delayed. We proceed carefully, she said. We follow their instructions. We respect the ship and its intelligence. And we prepare for whatever comes next. Jalen leaned close to the console, studying the patterns. Commander, the structure is enormous. If it decides to interact with Earth, it could be catastrophic. But these fragments, they show us how to resist it. They became part of the ship to protect humanity. We have to honor that. Leora nodded. Then we do not fail. Whatever comes, we face it as humans. Adapt, survive, and protect. The Paragon seemed to pulse in response. Lights flowing in rhythmic patterns, the fragments communicated more clearly now, showing images of the alien structure, its energy fields, and the ways it had tried to integrate the crew. Leora realized that understanding these patterns would be key to ensuring their safe return and preventing the structure from ever reaching Earth. They spent the next several hours moving deeper into the ship, following the fragment's guidance. Hidden compartments revealed additional systems and consoles, previously sealed off. Each contained more information about the structure, the crew's efforts to resist, and the methods they used to merge with the ship without losing themselves completely. Joe worked tirelessly to stabilize the fragments, ensuring they could communicate and guide the team without being damaged. Leora coordinated the efforts, making strategic decisions about which systems to access and which to leave untouched. The ship responded with subtle adjustments, lights shifting, engines humming, and corridors guiding them as if it understood their purpose. Finally, they reached a chamber that had never been seen before, hidden deep within the ship's core. The walls glowed with energy patterns that matched the alien structure's diagrams, and the air vibrated with a low hum that resonated through their bodies. "This is it," Joe whispered. "The heart of the ship, the place where the crew merged completely." Leora stepped forward, feeling a strange connection. The Paragon pulsed around her, almost alive in a way she had never imagined. The fragments of the crew began to coalesce on the displays, forming clearer images and voices. They were reaching out, not physically, but mentally, guiding her, trusting her to continue their mission. The realization hit her with full force. The crew had survived, but only through their ingenuity, bravery, and human spirit. They had become one with the ship to protect Earth and humanity. And now, it was up to Leora and her team to honor that sacrifice, complete the work, and ensure that the knowledge and courage of these humans would continue to safeguard the future. As the Paragon pulsed softly around her, Leora whispered to herself, "We are human. We adapt. We survive. And we will not fail." The ship's lights brightened, responding to her resolve. The crew fragments shimmered, clearer than ever before, guiding them toward the next step in their journey. The alien structure had been delayed, but not defeated. The fight was far from over. Yet Leora knew this. Whatever challenges lay ahead, humans would face them. With intelligence, courage, and unpredictability, they would continue to survive, to protect, and to triumph. The Paragon was alive, its crew was alive, in a new way, and humanity had once again proven why it was special. Not just in skill, but in spirit. The Paragon glided steadily through space, its lights bright, and its systems fully operational. Leora stood on the observation deck, her eyes fixed on the black expanse dotted with stars. Every corner of the ship now felt alive in a way she could understand. The fragments of the crew, stabilized and integrated, pulsed through the ship's systems like a subtle heartbeat. They guided her and her team, but the alien structure that had claimed them years before still lingered in their thoughts, an ever-present threat just beyond their reach. Joe worked quickly at the main console, her fingers flying over the keys, stabilizing the crew's digital presence further. "Commander," she said, "the fragments are fully coherent now. They're working with us, giving instructions. We can understand the energy patterns and anticipate the structure's responses." Leora's jaw tightened. "Good. But this is still dangerous. The structure is enormous and intelligent. It can predict patterns, scan our minds, and manipulate energy in ways we don't fully understand. We cannot underestimate it." Jalen nodded. "Then we use what humans do best: unpredictability, creativity. The structure can't calculate that." Leora took a deep breath and addressed the crew fragments. "You saved yourselves and the ship before. Now you will help us stop the structure from following us to Earth. We follow your guidance. Lead us." A soft glow pulsed across the observation deck, almost as if the ship was nodding in response. The fragments' voices filled the room, calm but determined. "We cannot leave it. We must protect Earth. Use the ship. Confuse it. Overwhelm it." Joe analyzed the data rapidly. The structure calculates probability and predicts outcomes based on logic. But the crew, they introduced chaos. Unpredictable variables. That's why it couldn't fully control them. If we replicate that, we can outsmart it. Leora's mind raced. Then we create scenarios it cannot predict. Random movements, irregular energy signatures, changes in course. The crew will guide us through the right patterns. As they prepared, The Paragon hummed softly, almost like a living organism responding to their commands. The engines adjusted subtly, lights flickering in rhythm. With the crew fragments' instructions, Leora realized that the ship itself was not just a vessel, it was now a living extension of human ingenuity, fused with the crew's consciousness. "Prepare the navigation arrays," she ordered. "We will lure the structure, confuse it, and use the Paragon systems to block its scanning. Joe, coordinate with the fragments. Jalen, ensure all safety systems are active." Hours passed as they carefully followed the fragments' guidance. Every movement was calculated, yet intentionally unpredictable. They shifted the ship's course repeatedly, engaged engines in bursts, then stopped. They sent energy pulses in patterns the structure could not anticipate. The stars outside seemed to blur as they raced through space. Always moving, never predictable. Then, the alien structure appeared on the long-range sensors. It was colossal, a ring of golden light, twisting through space, larger than any planet, radiating energy fields that bent the stars around it. Its presence was overwhelming, a silent force that seemed to stretch through the void itself. Leora swallowed. "It knows we are here." Joe nodded, fingers steady on the console. "Yes, but it cannot anticipate what comes next. Follow the crew fragment's guidance precisely. We have the advantage if we act unpredictably," the structure responded, sending pulses toward the Paragon. Energy surged along the hull, and the lights flickered violently. Leora gripped the railing, feeling the vibration through the floor. The fragments guided her, instructing precise but random movements that countered the pulses. "Left, now reverse thrust. Engine burst." The voices echoed through the systems, clear and urgent. The ship responded perfectly. Energy fields from the structure collided with the Paragon's hull, but dissipated. Unable to penetrate the combined defenses of ship and crew, Leora realized that the structure had expected human flight patterns to be predictable, but the crew's guidance introduced variables it could not compute. As they maneuvered, the crew fragments began to stabilize the structure's calculations further, introducing more complex patterns. The Paragon pulsed with light, engines flaring in rhythmic bursts, and the alien presence faltered, unable to adapt. "We're doing it," Jalen shouted, eyes wide at the sensor readouts. "It's losing track," Leora nodded, determination blazing in her eyes. "We continue. No mistakes. Focus on unpredictability and human ingenuity. That is our weapon." The structure sent out another series of pulses, stronger and more focused this time. The ship shuddered as the energy brushed against the hull, lights flickering violently. Joe worked frantically, stabilizing the crew fragments and reinforcing the energy shields through the systems. "Commander," Joe said, voice tense. "This is the final stage. We have one chance to break its control and force it to retreat. We need to overload its calculations with unpredictability max human chaos." Leora understood immediately. "Then we push everything we have. The crew fragments, the ship, and us. We act together. We show it what humans can do." She gave the order. The Paragon accelerated, weaving unpredictably through space. Lights flashed, engines pulsed, and energy shields shimmered as the ship became a living organism of movement and calculation. The crew fragments guided every action, coordinating with Joe and the human team to amplify the chaotic patterns. The alien structure struggled, its massive form twisting in ways that defied physics as it attempted to calculate and predict the ship's behavior. Pulses bounced off the shields, redirected, and overlapped in patterns it could not resolve. "Keep going," Leora shouted. "Do not stop. Chaos, unpredictability, ingenuity." The structure recoiled, energy fields collapsing in on themselves as the Paragon continued to move in impossible, non-linear paths. Lights flickered in brilliant patterns, the ship's systems singing with the power of the integrated crew. Then, slowly, the alien presence began to retreat. It withdrew its energy fields, pulled back into the void, and disappeared from the sensors. The immediate threat was gone. The Peregrine's hull vibrated gently as the engines throttled down, lights returning to a steady glow. Leora exhaled deeply, relief flooding through her. Joe and Jalen were silent for a moment, letting the tension drain. The crew fragments pulsed softly through the ship, almost like a heartbeat returning to normal. "We did it," Jalen whispered. Leora nodded, though she did not relax completely. "Yes. But this is not the end. The structure may return. And there are other unknowns in the universe. What matters is that the crew is safe. The ship is operational. And Earth is protected. For now." Joe worked quickly to stabilize the fragments further. "Commander, the crew is now fully integrated. They can communicate clearly, guide the ship, and maintain its systems indefinitely if necessary. We have restored what they lost, and they can now return to human form if we transfer them back." Leora approached the main console. The fragments' images shimmered on the display, clearer than ever. She recognized the faces of the missing crew, alive in a new form but familiar, their voices calm and grateful. "You kept the ship safe," Leora said softly. "Now it's our turn to bring you back." The process was slow and careful. Joe worked through the ship's systems, following the fragments' instructions precisely. Leora monitored every step, ensuring stability and safety. The crew fragments, once trapped and isolated, began to reintegrate with their physical forms, materializing slowly in the medical bay. Their eyes opened one by one, confusion and relief mingling as they realized they were alive, whole, and free. The Peregrine pulsed gently, almost as if sighing in relief. Leora stepped back and watched the crew stand, shaking off the last traces of digital existence. Their bravery had protected humanity, and now they had returned. One by one, they approached her. Captain Rains, the ship's former commander, smiled faintly. "Commander Hale, you saved us all. We are grateful." Leora shook her head. "No. You saved yourselves. You merged with this ship, outsmarted an alien intelligence, and protected Earth. We only helped guide you home." The crew exchanged smiles and nods. They were tired, but alive, and their spirit was stronger than ever. Outside, the stars stretched infinitely. The Peregrine had returned home. But more importantly, humanity had proven once again why it was special. Intelligence, creativity, unpredictability, and courage. These were not just traits, they were the essence of human survival. As the ship approached Sol, Leora looked at the crew and the restored systems. The Peregrine glowed softly, alive with both human ingenuity and digital consciousness. The ship and its crew had survived something that should have destroyed them. They had adapted, fought, and won. Leora allowed herself a smile. "Welcome home, Paragon. Welcome home, crew." The ship's lights pulsed gently in response, as if acknowledging her words. Outside, Sol's blue star bathed the vessel in a warm glow, reflecting off its polished hull. Humanity had faced an unknown, survived, and emerged stronger, proving that no matter the danger, humans would endure, adapt, and prevail. And the Peregrine, alive with both crew and ship as one, would continue to explore, to protect, and to remind the universe of what humans could achieve. The crew gathered in the observation deck, looking out at the stars, their faces a mixture of awe, relief, and quiet pride. They had faced the unimaginable, survived the unthinkable, and returned to the place they belonged. And humanity, once again, had proven itself extraordinary. The Peregrine's engines hummed a steady rhythm as it continued toward Earth, carrying with it the courage, ingenuity, and spirit of those who refused to be defeated. The stars stretched endlessly, but humans would always find a way to reach them. The adventure was over, the lesson was clear, and the universe, vast and ancient, had learned something important. No intelligence, no matter how advanced, could predict the brilliance of the human mind.